Welcome everyone. We're just gonna give everyone a minute or two to have time to join the webinar, and then we'll get started. All right. Welcome everyone to the cutest MeowDC webinar of this year, the virtual Kitten NICU Tour with Nancy Nelson, Kitten NICU Manager at St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center. Hello. Every day, 365 days a year, our Kitten NICU team saves lives of the most vulnerable. During this webinar, we will show you how St. Hubert's team spends their day saving lives of the orphaned and ill kittens. Kitten overload is guaranteed. This webinar will be recorded and available on the website. Please feel free to use the chat to tell us a little bit more about yourself, and feel free to use Q&A section to ask Nancy anything you'd like to learn about kittens. And now, without further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Nancy.
Hi, thank you, Katie. Hi, everybody. Welcome to St. Hubert's HRA Kitten NICU. Well, this is it. This is the hub of what we do for kittens. They talk about this season called kitten season, but kitten season is actually all year round. It's just there are more kittens that come in here during the warmer weather in the spring into the summer. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick tour of our small little cottage behind the main building of the shelter, let you see the facility itself. It is small, and some of the equipment that we use. And then I'm going to introduce you to a couple of our NICU residents, meaning cats in cages, and tell you a little bit about the variety of ages and scenarios and situations that we take care of kittens in here, and how we get them in here, how they arrive in here, and just talk about what we say in the industry their pathways are. Hopefully at the end of all of this, once they leave here, they find their forever homes. So first I'm going to do is just kind of give you a bird's eye view, because it is so small. I'm going to walk you through. So when you come in the door, as you can see, we have banks of cages on the side, stainless steel cages. When we have animals that perhaps are harboring a little upper respiratory or something like that, we generally have them covered. I removed the covers today just for a short period of time in order to let you take a look and get some kitten cuteness overload. But then I'll go back and I'll talk to you about each individual case to give you a close-up with them. So each either litter that comes in, or a singleton as they're called, or a mom and babies, get assigned housing depending on the size of what they need. They each get some kennel cards, which are identifiers for us to know, especially on moms and babies, who's who, especially on kittens that have siblings who all look alike. And you'll see some of those on the other side here. So we can identify them. When they're this little, it's even hard to tell whether they're male or female. So sometimes colors all look the same. So we identify them with cage cards. And if you walk on back this way, we have, this is our medical area here, and we've got a little bit of everything. First off, let me go back and define for you what a NICU is. NICU stands for Neonate Intensive Care Unit. A neonatal kitten is qualified or defined as newborn from birth to about 3 to 4 weeks of age, when kittens are at their most vulnerable. Why are they at the most vulnerable? Well, a lot of these kittens that we see come in from outside. They were born in a colony. They were born to a feral mom. They were born to somebody, a mom that gets hit by a car or goes missing. So they are vulnerable for a lot of different reasons, not only disease and just age, being a newborn, but also they are kind of sitting ducks for some animals out there in different environments to take advantage of their little lives. So our ACO team, which stands for Animal Control Officers here at St. Hubert's, are on the patrol out in the jurisdictions that we serve, the towns that is, and they help take some of these kittens from the various locations they are, be them in colonies, be them feral cats, be them in abandoned houses, be them in backyards and alleys, even in people's homes, and then they bring them to us. Other ways they come in are through owner surrenders, meaning that somebody perhaps has a cat in their house that they did not know was pregnant. One, maybe they can't afford to keep that cat, or two, they just didn't expect to have kittens. So they'll call, and as long as they're within the jurisdiction that we serve, which is like about 21 different towns, we'll take them as an owner surrender. And then there's always the strays, and there's always the good Samaritans. People just walk in with kittens. So that happens a lot at this time of the year, and it will continue on pretty much throughout the summer. So that's kind of a little quick backdrop as to how we get the kittens. But again, the neonate intensive care unit, the NICU, is where we take care of all of these vulnerable kittens who need somebody. They need a person, they need medical attention, and sometimes they just need food, water, and just some good care. Again, I'm going to show you some of those. So let's just take a look, a bird's eye view, if you will, at some of the equipment that we have here. We've always got all kinds of medical things: syringes, medicines, formulas for kittens, bottles, hand warmers, gloves. These are some of our incubators for those that are in need of constant heat, or nebulizers for things like asthma and breathing problems. We always have them set up and ready to go for the next batch of kittens that might come in and need them. And of course, with a little sparkle in the sky, just to give them some enjoyment while they're laying in the incubators. If you pan over to here, we've got tons and tons of medical supplies, things that we use on an everyday basis to help these kittens make it to their next pathway. And hopefully once they leave here, they have left here to move on to eventually the adoption floor. So if you look around, you'll get an idea as to all the different things that we have. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of every single thing, but believe me, there's a lot of stuff in here. Then we come down this other side, and there's another bank of cages here. And again, I'll introduce you to some of these residents. Some of them are covered, and I'll explain why. If Kim just wants to show you the cover, one covered cage down there. And if you come quietly over here, you'll see some of them taking their afternoon nap after they just ate. Kitten cuteness overload. So what we do in here is we act kind of like their mama when they need us to be, by feeding them, stimulating them to urinate or defecate, cleaning them, getting rid of the fleas and the bugs on them. They're frequently given a Dawn dish detergent baths, because most of these kittens that come in here, when they're in really critical condition, are too young to receive any true actual medicine. So we come up with different ways to help them to remove fleas without using a flea product, because that would be detrimental to them to use a flea product. So we're forever bathing kittens and then blow drying them from a distance and keeping them nice and warm. So what I'm going to do now is kind of back you up and show you a little bit about each kitten and each resident that we have here at the moment. The first one I'm going to show you is down here. She is covered for a reason. Her name is Carmella. She's a beautiful big girl, big orange kind of tortie, and she gave us 3 beautiful babies just last night. And they are latching, as you can see, on mom right now. And she is, I think she's enjoying the camera. And we have let her be today. We've given her some, as you can see, she's eaten all of her food, which is always a great sign. The kittens latching onto her to nurse is a wonderful sign. And we're going to let her stay with her babies, bond with her babies. We're going to take her tomorrow, probably check her, make sure everything looks good. But so far, it looks like she's an awesome mom. And so far, it looks like she has some healthy babies who are eating. Doesn't get much better than that in the NICU. All right. So I'm going to cover her back up for a second. I'll be back in a minute, Carmella. And then if you come over here, this cat over here, her name is Bridget Jones. part of the fun part of being in the NICU is coming up with some names. So if any of you have names you want to send over to us, please feel free, because we run out of them sometimes. Hard to believe. But this is Bridget Jones, and these are her two babies, Daniel and Hazlitt. Bridget Jones and Carmella, the ones that you just saw with the newborns, actually came from the same house. They were owner surrenders for whatever reason. To us in the NICU, it doesn't matter where they come from, how they get here, what the story is. We just are glad that we are here to be able to take care of them. And as you can see, her baby, she's got two of them. One is laying behind her, and the one is right in the front of her. They're a little bit older. So this particular person had, and there's a third cat, but we don't have that cat yet. This owner, for whatever reason, decided that St. Hubert's would be the best place for these two mamas to be. And so they are. So they will stay with us until they're about a good healthy 2 pounds. And then at 2 pounds, and about 2 months, and receiving vaccines and receiving dewormers and any other things that they need in the interim, nail clippings, ears, flea checks. We will get them on the surgery schedule to have a spay or neuter, depending on their sex. Part of determining their sex is part of our intake process. I'm going to show you that in a second too, as to what we do. So then at 2 months of age, they're healthy, they get spayed and neutered, they don't come back into the NICU, they go right onto the adoption floor, and I guarantee you they are scooped up and adopted within a very short period of time. Kittens are probably the #1 thing that people come in and ask for year round, but especially at this time of the year. And we have some lovely kittens that are going to be able to be adopted. So let's go down on the bottom here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about NASA is the mom. And then she has an interesting scenario. There's a little cat that's laying on the bed here. His name is Rocket. Rocket came into us and he didn't have a mom, or so we thought. 5 days after Rocket came into us, we had the animal control officers bring in NASA, and they said to us, this is Rocket's mom. And we're like, how did you find out? And the guy whose house it was at outside said that he had seen her with Rocket, and then she went missing, and that's why he decided to call us. So 5 days after Rocket arrived by us, his mom came over, and then we reunited them. Wonderful moment. Wonderful to see NASA, who was a lot younger, immediately go to mom. Mom immediately bond with Rocket, and then watch Rocket start nursing on her. Again, it doesn't get much better than that in the NICU. Now, who you see laying in the front here, his name is Asteroid. Regretfully, he didn't have a mom, but he was about the same age as Rocket. So in the sheltering industry over the years, it probably years ago was like a little frowned upon, mix and mingling, co-housing. But the best place for a kitten is always with a mom, even if it's a surrogate mom. So the industry now pretty much will try to co-house them together if there's a mom who will take on the little kitten that doesn't belong to her. And NASA, being such a good mom that she is, she accepted Asteroid with no problem. So now they think they're all one family, and in our eyes, they are. So they still try to nurse, but they're older, so they don't really do it too much. So they're all eating on their own right now. And as soon as they get to be a little bit bigger and a little bit more hefty in their weight, they'll eventually get over to the spay neuter clinic and onto the adoption floor. And then NASA will also be spayed, and then she'll go on the adoption floor. All right, great story. Now, over here, these are cages that are ready, but over here, I'm kind of looping you around again. These are called the Chimney Cats. When we have a litter, we try to come up with a theme. It's just easier to say the theme than saying all of the names. As you can see, like I was saying before, sometimes you get a bunch of kittens that look almost identical. And until they start to get older and start to develop their own personality, characteristics, and markings, it's really hard to tell them apart. So this is the Chimney Gang. And the reason they're called the Chimney Gang is because for whatever reason, their mama, who is not with us, we don't know where she is, but she felt that they were safest inside a chimney in somebody's house. I don't have a chimney, so I might not be using the right words, but I think it's called like a flue or something like that. So somewhere, something was open that she felt this was the safest place for these kittens. So the homeowner heard these cries over and over, and the cries started to become a little less every day. So she got concerned that there was no mom coming for them. She contacted us. We sent over our people. They had a lot of maneuvering to do, moving some of the walls, believe it or not, moving some of the furniture and the fireplace things, and squeezing into a very, very tight area and plucking out these 4 kittens one by one. And here they are to tell the story. Okay, no mom. They were already starting to eat on their own, which made it a little easier for us that we didn't have to find a surrogate mom, or none of the volunteers or fosters or the NICU staff had to take them home to bottle feed them, which is something that we also do. I don't have any bottle feeders here right now. I'd love to show you one, but I don't have any. But bottle feeding is something that is a commitment. When there is not a mom, you take them home, and depending on their age, but if they're newborns, every 2 to 3 hours, round the clock, you have to get a certain amount of formula into them that you make, nice warm formula. You stimulate them again to urinate and defecate. And then as time passes, you get to sleep a little bit longer. Maybe it's not every 2 to 3 hours, maybe it's 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. And then eventually you get to the point where it's like only once a night I have to get up. And then they wind up eating on their own and peeing and pooping on their own. And then they come back here and again, spend some time here or in a foster just to continue to be socialized. And then they eventually make their pathway out into the adoption floor after surgery as well. So we've got a little bit ahead of us with these guys. But yep, that's the Chimney Gang. And then down here, the one that's been covered, I'll show you her. These are the storm kids. I think it was about a week ago, we had a really bad torrential lightning and thundering storm here. And these guys were brought in because there was no mom. They were out laying in, it was like in someone's backyard somewhere. And they were soaking wet and pretty much as near to death as they could be. I mean, soaking wet. And we really didn't think they were going to make it. But they did, with a lot of hard work, round the clock care. We did do some bottle feeding, and we made sure that we warmed them up slowly, fed them only when they were warm, made sure that they all looked healthy, and kept bottle feeding. And then another day, I think it was the next day, I believe it was, they trapped the mom and they brought her in. So they've been with the mom ever since. But the mom is a feral cat. She doesn't like when we go into her cage. She makes that very well known to us. She's gotten used to it, and she will work with us as far as staying on one side while we clean the other, and then we scoot her down and we clean this side and she stays on the other. It's become a mutual agreement, but it took a while getting there. But again, this is another scenario of the best place a kitten can be is always with a mom or surrogate. But if they don't have that, either of those, that's where the NICU comes in. We're here to take care of them, be their moms. So I'm just going to close her up again here. And then this last bunch here are actually the ones that were sleeping, are actually the same litter. It was a litter of 5. We split them up just to give them some more room in the cages. They are all independent eaters. As you can see from their eyes, they're a little bit red, a little bit watery. They've got upper respiratory infections, very common in kittens as well as adult cats too. Change of season does that, change of environment does that, coming in contact with other cats does that. So an upper respiratory infection, you would think, yeah, it's just a little cold. But for these tiny little vulnerable beings, these tiny little vulnerable kittens, an upper respiratory infection can go south very, very quickly. So we make sure that we are medicating them, taking care of their eyes, again, as long as they're at an age that they can safely be medicated. So right now, these guys are all under some upper respiratory medication protocols, and they are already, as you can see, because you didn't see them before, they're quite playful and feeling better. So, you know, again, that's what we do here in the NICU. Now, there are times that the situation doesn't turn out the way that we want. It's a fact. I'd like to be able to tell you a fib and say every one of them we save, but that's just not, we're not God. The universe has other things in mind, and sometimes we don't understand why moms leave their babies, why the babies, you know, are laying there crying after being born and that there's nobody there looking after them like their mama. We can't explain that. There's different theories that maybe the mom knows perhaps there's something wrong with the kittens. Maybe she doesn't have enough milk. Maybe she was scared off by a predator. So we really don't know, but there are times where we do our best round the clock with whatever we can possibly do to try to save those little lives. And sometimes it just fails. So that is a very real part of rearing a kitten, to be realistic in the fact that we can't always save them all. Mother Nature had something else intended for them. We intervened, but Mother Nature wins out. But the ones that we do save, they have stories. We share them with the adopters. We always have baby pictures to send them when they adopt and to let them know what they look like. And generally speaking, it is truly the happiest place on earth at the end of it. We're kind of like Disneyland here at the end of a good day. So that's kind of the NICU in a really roundabout way that I toured you around the same thing 2 or 3 times. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of cleaning. It's a lot of feeding. You can see this is just a portion of all the different varieties of food we have. We have so many foods. So many towels, so many sheets, so many fluffies and fleeces, so much laundry all the time. But it is a dedication that we make at St. Hubert's and pretty much any shelter that has a NICU or a nursery to try to help these tiny lives. So we give it all we have, and maybe someday we'll see some of you in some capacity working in a NICU somewhere. So
Nancy, I just want to tell you, thank you so much. I personally learned a lot and they're so adorable. So everyone now, please feel free to use Q&A to ask any questions you may have. I wanted to ask you, Nancy, could you please tell us a little bit more on how foster parents and foster program, like what role it plays in the NICU and how foster parents can help you?
Sure, that's a great question. Thanks, Kate. So the ideal situation in a NICU or a nursery is to have as many of your NICU residents out in foster. And you want to ask why. You want to say, well, why? Because you just got done telling us about all the wonderful things that you do here. So we are 24/7. What we do is 24/7, 365 days. But we don't do that here in the building. Okay, so if we have somebody who's extremely vulnerable, somebody who needs to be bottle fed, like I said, throughout the night, they're not going to be here where we don't have staff overnight. The best place for them is going to be in a home where somebody is hands-on with them, treating them, feeding them, looking after them. So that is generally experienced fosters, and we cultivate fosters all the time, and we have an entire foster department, and that's exactly what they do. They try to connect people who want to foster with the needs of what we have for babies. Some people like to foster kittens that are like, let's just say like raspberry and cranberry, like crazy little kittens who will run around their house, who have learned to use a litter box, who are eating on their own, and they need some playtime. They need to be socialized. They need to spend time with perhaps somebody picking them up more frequently and getting them used to somebody hugging them. We can't do that here in the NICU. So our fosters are an extension of what we do. And we're forever looking to recruit people to come in to what we do in the NICU, only take them home with you. And again, I use the word experience because I never want to send a kitten home with somebody who is not comfortable with that particular situation. I don't want to give somebody a bottle feeder if they've never done it before and they're not sure about it because they're afraid that they're going to do something wrong. There's never anything that can be done wrong. It's just a matter of having the knowledge or having the experience shared with you. So we are forever teaching and having people come in when we have bottle babies to show them this is how it's done. And we'll show them on a live kitten. Like I have a little boy that I'm fostering right now. I have to give a shout out to my tread. Everybody here knows how much in love I am with this little guy. And he came in as a tiny little sausage all by himself. And he has spent the first 4.5 weeks of his life with me back and forth every day in his carrier. He probably has more frequent flyer miles than anybody who flies all the time because he's forever in my truck. And I have spent many nights up 2, 3 hours, 4, 5, 6, until he got to the point where he eats on his own, he pees and poops on his own, and he's about ready to actually come back in, spend time with perhaps another foster family, and then be spayed and neutered. I chose to do that. I chose to take him because he was a bottle feeder, and he was very, very sick when I first got him. It wasn't that I didn't trust anybody else to do it. It's just at that time when Tread came in, we did not have anybody else who could do that for this vulnerable little black and white tuxedo cat. So I said, I'll take him. That's going to take everything in my power to give him up because he matches with my other tuxedos. But so we look for fosters who want to continue to learn and be part of what we do here.
Thank you so much. This was very helpful. And we have a question here. If you have pets at home, how do you make sure you don't bring fleas or illness home for them? I assume this is for someone who would be interested in fostering kittens.
Yeah, great question. And it is certainly always a concern. One of the things that I cannot show you today is that we do have a separate room within the main shelter, which is designated solely to ringworm. Okay, ringworm is a fungus. It's like athlete's foot, but it can really be detrimental to some kittens. We have 2 cats who came in together, Popcorn and Puff, and one of them has ringworm so bad, he was living out in the streets. I mean, so bad. You know, he'll be fine. He'll make a good turnaround, but we don't house that kind of thing in here because it's so contagious. And it's called a zoonotic, meaning that humans can get it from them too. So these are concerns that I go home every night because I have animals. I have lots of animals at home, and I certainly want to always take precautions to make sure that I'm not bringing anything in my house. So we take a couple of different, precautions. We spray ourselves whenever we leave the NICU. We are spraying ourselves with some really good disinfectant that's meant for this kind of environment. Bottoms of our shoes. A lot of times we'll wear gowns, protective PPE, personal protective equipment too. And so we'll spray ourselves down. And a lot of us in the regular shelter, as well as here in the NICU, also have a change of clothes that we'll put on before we leave the building or as soon as we get home before we enter our house. The other thing that I always want to make sure that fosters know is to make sure that your animals at home are all up to date with their vaccines. Very, very important that they're on a monthly flea and tick preventative and a heartworm preventative, and cats a flea and tick preventative, even if they're not outside. You don't necessarily always want to integrate them right away. You want to keep them isolated and separate for a while, just so you can make sure that that animal does not break with anything that we didn't see here in the NICU. So there are steps that you take, and there are ways that we guide the fosters to make sure we want to keep their pets at home as healthy as possible, but we also really appreciate when they want to take a foster home too. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Nancy. And I kind of have a follow-up question. If I have other animals at home, can I bring in the bottle babies? And I feel like you answered a lot of it, but what other steps should I take in order to protect my animals and the foster babies?
Well, with the bottle babies, it's a little bit different, and that's why they happen to be my favorite, because the bottle babies are generally, they're not walking. They pretty much stay where you put them. So when I use Tread as my example. When I was taking him home, he was in a carrier. When I would wake up to feed him every 2 to 3 hours, he was still in that carrier. He had a nice warm heated disc, snuggle safe disc in there. I would feed him. I'd wash my hands. I'd go out on my back porch, even in the middle of the night, spray myself down. Okay, all my animals, they were still asleep. And then when I got done bottle feeding him, I would close him up. First, I'd make him urinate and defecate. I would close up his thing, cover him up for the night, make sure he's in a safe place. Again, wash myself. I'd go back to bed. I never had him directly in contact with my animals when they are that small. So for the bottle babies, it's almost a little bit easier, if you will, to keep them separate from your own animals in the house. It's when they start to be like these little crazy banshees that want to run around. So a lot of people have like a separate room, maybe an extra playroom or a large bathroom, someplace that they also don't mind, cleaning up every now and then when accidents, when kittens are just learning about the litter boxes and don't quite have it down 100%. So we see a lot of people have separate rooms. There's also play pens that they make, which we always have here that we give to the fosters, which contain them, but still give them room to act like the kittens that they are. So we take whatever precaution, and a lot of it is dependent on the age.
Oh yeah, playpens are my all-time favorite too.
Right? I know. And they just fold down, and they've got pockets on them. They're the best.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of the times you mentioned that kittens are vulnerable, and we all know that they are. And could you reiterate a little bit more in this, why exactly they're considered to be the most vulnerable population?
They can't generally fend for themselves. They can't protect themselves. Newborns can't regulate their body heat. So they are literally, it's like the equivalent of a newborn human being. If somebody were to have a baby, and I certainly don't mean to be painting an ugly picture or a graphic situation, but if somebody were to have a baby and they chose that they didn't want that baby and they put it in a box, that baby is not capable of saying, hey, I need help. Hey, somebody feed me. Hey, I'm cold. Hey, I'm too hot. I'm in the sun. They're vulnerable. There's everything about protection has been eliminated from that scenario. And it's the same with these kittens. They don't know right or wrong. They don't know that, that bird's sitting up on that wire is looking at them as its next meal. So they're vulnerable in every sense of the word. Their immune systems are not developed yet. So they're vulnerable to disease. They're vulnerable to predators. They're vulnerable to humans. They're vulnerable to other animals who might not be a predatory nature, but they don't know what that is. So that's why they're considered vulnerable. They're fragile. They're hard to keep, but it's worth everything that we have to do what we can to make them last. And that's probably the best way I can describe it and compare it to, is like a newborn baby without a mom and a dad.
Mm-hmm. And if I want to foster bottle babies, but I'm really scared to handle something so fragile, do you have any piece of advice on how to overcome the fear of taking care of something so valuable and vulnerable?
Absolutely. The best way that you could do it is to do it, and do it under the guidance of, perhaps in DC, one of the many people that bottle feed down there, because you have a great foster program down in the DC location. So to learn under the guidance of experienced bottle feeders. It's the same thing. I always associate it with somebody learning to drive. It is scary as all heck to learn how to drive. But if you're taught and somebody's there with you and they're teaching you as you're doing it, and they're saying, wait, don't hit the brakes so fast, or wait, put your blinker on. It's the same thing that we can teach when we have a bottle baby in our hands and somebody who wants to learn right then and there. Can there be things that go wrong? Of course there can be. That just happens on occasion. But you won't learn any better way than to actually do it and try to do it and then try to do it again. So we encourage that. We encourage learning, and our job is education, to make people comfortable enough to be able to say, yeah, I'm ready to take that home. I'm ready to do it at home.
Mm-hmm. And how do you help foster parents? Do you have an educational program? Do you provide any supplies to them?
Oh yeah, we provide a lot of supplies. I'm in the process of making a Kitten Go Kit, and that has all the things that you need, age dependent for those kittens, food, heat discs, baby wipes, huge precious commodity. All the linens that you could use, syringes, nipples, bottles, bowls, regular food, formula, a scale for weighing them, charts for writing down the pre-feeding and the post-feeding weight when they're little itty bitties. We pretty much give you a phone number of who you call after hours. Myself and my team here, we are always giving out our phone numbers, because not only do we want to hear about the bad things, which we don't, hear too much about, but we also want to get pictures, and we also want to get those wonderful updates. So you have a bunch of resources that are given to you by the NICU team and or the foster team, so people are not out there feeling like they're on an island by themselves. The support is here, and we offer that.
Thank you. And we talked a lot about fostering, but I was wondering what other ways people can get involved, volunteering or any other programs. What are other ways for people to get involved?
In general, volunteers and fosters are a huge part of an animal shelter, regardless of the size. We have 2 dynamite departments when it comes to those areas. So the fostering will generally take animals home, not only just in the NICU, but we have a foster base that takes home a lot of our dogs and our puppies and our adult cats as well. Easy ones and challenged ones, perhaps ones that have medical situations, diabetics, or a dog that just had an amputation, or a cat that had an eye removed. So we have people who take animals home, which we are so grateful for. And then we have our volunteers who actually, for the most part, come to the shelter. And what they do at the shelter, I'm telling you, these people, fosters and volunteers, are angels on earth. We could not run the shelter without them at all. Every morning when I arrive here, I have to walk down a hallway to get to my office. And every morning there are 1 to 2 volunteers in our laundry room doing tons and tons of laundry. And every morning I say, oh my God, you guys are angels. Thank you so much. So it's everything and anything that you can think of that could be done as far as volunteer. Making enrichment toys for dogs, taking dogs on field trip walks into the town. We have volunteers who sign up to come in the NICU and clean cages for us in the mornings, which allows the medical staff and the NICU staff to then get the medications ready and the specialized foods ready and bottle feed or whatever we have to do. So people who come just to clean litter boxes and dirty newspapers, amazing opportunity to, especially for somebody who's younger, who might be looking to go into an animal field, to have that on your resume, your volunteering time, your fostering hours. That is really looked upon in such a positive way as you enter into the job force. So, regardless of your industry that you want to go in, volunteering is a huge thing that employers and colleges look at too. So.
And what is the minimum age to volunteer, and how do you sign up?
To be honest, I don't know if it's 18 or 16. I'm afraid I'd have to say it's either 16 or 18, and each location, probably any shelter, has somebody that would be the volunteer coordinator or manager. And so they should just reach out to the main shelter number and talk to the desk and ask, I'd like to volunteer or get some information, or websites. Go onto our websites, and we've got all kinds of good information on there. That actually might say the age on there. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact age.
And we have another question. If you want to purchase donations from the wish list, what do you need most right now? And what do you need the most, like, all the time?
Wow, that's a great question, because that changes on a day-to-day basis. As of Saturday, when I was here and I looked at our food, we have all different kinds of foods for different scenarios. This is a food called Mother and Baby Cat, Mom and Baby Cat, we call it. And it's geared for moms and babies 1 to 4 weeks of age, filled with all kinds of good fats and proteins and things that is better than just a standard over-the-counter kind of food for the mamas and their newborns. Not that they're eating it, but the mama's eating it. And I looked and I went, oh no, 2 cases, that will only last like 2 days. That's how frequently we go through it. So food is always a huge item in the NICU. Mama Baby Cat, Kitten Wellness, Fancy Feast Kitten, Wellness, Rachel. I mean, it's funny how each of the cats have a different palate. Some like ocean fishy things and others turn their nose up at it. So food is a big thing. These wonderful Snuggle Safe discs, which are they're just wonderful. I don't even know what the other word is I want to use. We put them in the microwave. They retain heat for, I don't know, it's like 10 hours. And so we put those in with each of the kittens. We have another one ready to go, and that 10 hours is up, and we put them another one in. These are the best things since sliced bread for in the NICU. So those baby kitten formula, not so much puppy formula, because we don't generally get a lot of puppies, and if we did, they wouldn't be in here. This is primarily kittens. Donations of blankets and fleece and cat toys, bowls, litter, just everyday things that you would think of when you think of a cat is what we use.
Yeah, and for anyone who is interested in seeing the full list of all the supplies that Kitten NICU needs at St. Hubert's, and also what other staff members need for kittens at the Humane Rescue Alliance, you can go to meowdc.org, and both of the wish lists are posted there. All you need to do just to click, and then you'll see the full supply list. Thank you, Nancy, so much. That was so helpful. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are gonna wrap this up. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. It was amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed talking about the NICU, and I hope that I've inspired people to volunteer, foster, or maybe even enter into this field at some point.
I hope so too. And as a reminder, this recording will be available on the website, and please feel free to go to meowdc.org to see both wish lists. Thank you, everyone.
Last thing I want to say is that if anybody has any questions they want to send directly to me, you could put it to NICU, NICU at sthuberts.org, NICU at sthuberts.org.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.